Heads up, it's the Roll Jays podcast, the voice of the Creighton basketball fan. With your hosts, Jimmie Allen and Casey Matthews. Join the crew and meet CU players, coaches, and a whole lot more. Now, the Roll Jays podcast. Here's Jimmie Allen.
Welcome back into the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pepper Jack's Grill and Pyramid Contractors. Jimmie Allen, Casey Matthews joining you. Following Creighton's loss 90-63 to Gonzaga out in Spokane. And Casey, obviously, this is a game that's a story of two halves. Creighton keeping pace, even though they're getting out-rebounded massively on the glass in the first half. Couldn't buy a bucket to save their lives in the second half. At one point, they were 2 of 10 from the field. You're not going to win a whole lot of basketball games like that.
No, that's a good way to put it. Before we get rolling too, we got some people coming in and watching. We appreciate you guys a late night here in Omaha. If you have questions or anything, feel free, drop them in and we'll try to get to them.
Do we risk putting the comments on the screen after this one?
Oh yeah, I mean, as long as they're not too bad,
right.
we can do that.
We'll leave them up there. Go ahead and get your comments in. We'll do our best to answer all questions too. We're expecting to hear from Creighton assistant coach Steve Murfeld, but obviously after the performance, like the Jay said, it would be understandable that coach may not join us.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if he can. I'm sure he will. But Jimmie, I mean, obviously, like, there's no way to sugarcoat this one. We got beat bad, and it wasn't like you can't really hang your head on them and go like, oh well, we really fought. Like, I don't think we did. It felt like we, kept getting hit and we just didn't respond. When you're turning the ball over and you're letting them get out, we must have talked multiple times about you can't let the crowd into it, and the crowd got into it, and it just makes such a big difference. It kills your confidence. It makes you feel like you can't get stops. It makes you feel like you're never going to hit a shot. And when you get into those moments, what you have to be able to do is do the little things. You have to pass. You have to cut with intensity. You have to
be physical.
And that's just not where this team is at right now. And you could break that down a couple of different ways, right? Like, you can say that that they're new, but look, in this day and age in NIL, we paid a lot of money for Josh Dix and Owen Freeman, and the other guys too, but those two in particular. You've got to produce, and if you don't,
those two guys were combined 1 of 11 from the field tonight. And I want to point something out. And Deebs makes a comment on Twitter asking about Fedor real quick. I think it's important to remember that he got bumped pretty hard and landed pretty hard. I don't think they made a choice to sit him in the second half. I think he may have been a little dinged up after that foul. So sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, I don't know that, and you could be right. I'm not sure. I think he actually looked okay when he got up, but the comment there is, glad they redshirted so him and Fedor could watch. I feel you. I mean, it seems like we, last year when Fedor was not sure if he's going to be eligible, I think that hype is still there for whatever reason. I think people just think this kid is unbelievable. He's a good player. And should he play more? Yeah, I'd probably play him more personally, but he is such a liability defensively that it's very hard to leave him in the game when he's going to give up, in some cases, a lot more than he's going to get offensively. So I get it. I understand, like, we want to see more, but that was my biggest issue with Hudson Greer as well. Like, I think Hudson's going to be a stud.
Yeah.
But defensively.
Well, I think the one caveat, or maybe the devil's advocate to that comment, though, is Fedor played 7 minutes tonight and Creighton still gave up 90 points. So, there's got to be a little bit of a trade-off. So, but I hear what you're saying. Back to the Owen and Josh thing. Like, I know this is an embarrassing loss on national TV to a top 25 perennial powerhouse. In their gym, you were inept offensively in the second half. This is still game number 2 with a whole lot of moving parts. Like, I'm not here to be an apologist by any stretch of the imagination. I just think there's been a lot of sky is falling on social media. And listen, that's what social media is for, too.
Sure.
I'm just not necessarily there. I think they got a lot to figure out. I'd love to talk to Murph tonight. I hope you do. end up getting a chance to talk to him. But I am very much an optimistic still about this team. I think there's still a lot of question marks. But again, I all off season I've been championing. Don't let things that are happening in November, December steer you away from the fact that things often happen in November and December, and then this coaching staff hasn't figured out by mid-January. I still think that's a very high possibility.
I do, but I'll tell you this, Jimmie, and the one thing I don't think that they can quote unquote figure out is athleticism, and I am
good point.
Increasingly more nervous about our athleticism, and in these games when you're playing against high level competition, it really comes to show. And we're going to have a chance to go to Vegas, play some other teams that we're going to be able to see, like, can we make up for some of that, which in my opinion is a lack of athleticism. I think, and again, you're playing against some backups, so it's not really apples to apples, but did you see Karam Conan late in the game? They're running ball screen action and they're throwing in the flip ups, right? We didn't see barely any of that with Owen and haven't seen it really in a couple games. Again, that's just not who Owen is, and that's okay. He's still a really good player that has his skill set, but it's such a big part of Coach Mack's offense. And to not have that ball screen lob threat is changing the way that we are playing offense. In a lot of ways, you could say this offense is unrecognizable, and it's not just because of the players. A lot of the actions are different, and I honestly I need to take more time and break it down. But I do think that things are different because of the lack of that flip up guy.
And it sounds like Steve Murfeld is going to join us here shortly. I just got him a link over. Apparently, he needed it sent to his phone yet again, so he should be joining us in a minute. Yeah, listen. And the other thing, like, I know people are going to want to talk about Josh and Owen as we have, and rightfully so. Only 4 J's scored more than one basket tonight,
right?
And Jackson only had 2. So, like, I know because of the money situation and everything you said, like, people are going to want to focus on that because they're the new guys and they're the fresh faces, and maybe there's some justification there because of the dollar amount that you mentioned. But I mean, I think it's really harsh to harp on 1 or 2 guys in this situation. And
for sure,
this feels like a very much a team loss. And again, the Roll Jays podcast just retweeted the environment beforehand in this game. And listen, a lot of people go out to the kennel and lose, right? But that is one of the most hostile environments, if not the most hostile environment, this team is going to face all season.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, it's going to be up there if it's not the worst. But I mean, I think this is where, and we've talked about this, right? Is who's the leader?
Yeah,
or who are the leaders? Human nature is to expect your 2 biggest names to be those guys, but that to me was pretty glaring. Today was just an overall lack of player-led leadership. What's up, Murph?
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Can you hear us, Murph?
Can you hear us?
I can barely hear you guys. It's going in and out.
Okay. Is that any better now that you're in the closed door?
Yeah, a little better.
Okay.
A little better.
Great assistant coach Steve Murfeld now joins us here on the Roll Jays podcast. Murph, obviously a tough second half. What was the message in the locker room after the game?
I mean, very somber. It's just, they're a good basketball team, obviously. Obviously, we made them probably better than they really are. But, we need to play a game like this. That's how when you have this many new guys, it doesn't hurt to get your tail kicked in. And, that's one of the learning processes that you have to go through in terms of getting guys to understand the way that Creighton plays. We're a very unselfish program. We only had 8 assists. I mean, that to me is just absolutely not acceptable. And, we'll have to learn from it. Give them a lot of credit. They were really good, especially in the second half when they turned it up. But at the same time, I mean, we're a better basketball team than that.
Yeah. Murph, we've been through some battles together, and we've taken some lumps like this, together in the past. And I think one of the things that I've always felt like we could point to, we were talking about this as you came on, was you usually have a leader. You usually have somebody that steps up in those moments and kind of settles things down on the court. I felt like that's something that we're missing right now, is that player-led leadership. Do you see anything internally that leads you to believe that it can get where it needs to get to?
Yeah, it's a great point, Casey. I mean, and that's something that Mac addressed after the game is, it can't always be coach-led. And to this point, that's what it's been. We don't have the internal leadership that we've always depended on, always counted on. And honestly, I don't know who that can be or will be, but it has to happen moving forward. There's any team that, Casey, you've been around some really good ones, but any team has internal leadership that controls the locker room. It goes all the way back to Grant Gibbs. That was kind of the change of culture when he came and controlled the locker room. And, guys, it's early, certainly, and you can expect a little bit of, guys not being totally bought in or not totally understanding this Creighton system. And that's hurt us, when we don't really have a lot of returning guys to teach the young guys. But, we've been at this now since June, and you would hope that it was farther along than what it is. And it will. I mean, it's going to take some time, obviously. It's a fine group of young men, but we'll have to, strap it up and get better. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Murph, I'm not asking you to make excuses for guys. I know you would never do that, but when Owen's knees hurt and Jackson had the foot injury before the season started and Karam wasn't available for the first game and it looked like Fedor got a little banged up tonight, how much has that kind of hindered the process when we talk about working on it since June and the development when guys really haven't been readily available due to injury?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that was a serious setback, and obviously he's still not 100%, still not in the condition that, you have to be to play at this level. And obviously he's played at this level before, so he, should understand that. But that it's difficult, and you don't want to make excuses for anybody. But certainly, he and this whole team has a lot of growing up to do.
Mm.
Yeah. Coach, I think when I look at the box score, the thing that really jumps out to me the most is just the overall shot attempts. 70 shot attempts for Gonzaga, 49 for us. Obviously, you can't win a game typically when you're taking 21 less shots than the other team. Can you talk about just what were some of the reasons that you saw that put us in such a bad spot offensively? For me, it was our passing. I feel like our passes aren't crisp and we're not passing guys open. Can you expand on maybe some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Case and Jimmie and listeners, I think it goes back to our pace. Our pace is not acceptable right now, both offensively and defensively. When you have guys catching and holding rather than just moving it, it slows everything down. And when our teams have been successful, and when you talk to people who have played against Creighton in the past, probably 10 years, even maybe more than that, the thing that they talk about the most is Creighton's ability to attack in transition and flow right into offense. And this team has not figured that out to this point. And I think, Casey, that goes back to your point about how many shot attempts we got up. Mac mentioned in the locker room after the game, they scored 90 points on, I think, 73 possessions. And that's just not acceptable. Obviously, they're an offensive basketball team, but when you give up, more than 1 point per possession, it's going to be a long night. And that's what it ended up being.
When we talk about finding that leadership and being able to establish who the guy is that needs to be the vocal leader on this team, when you're in practice, how much of that is repped in when you don't have somebody like that, where you guys are, as a coaching staff, are kind of barking that out, or maybe pulling a guy aside and letting them know, hey, in this situation, you need to vocalize this, or you need to make sure that we're in this set from a scheme standpoint.
Yeah, Max talked about that, and he said, "Hey, you guys have forced me and my coaches to be something that we're not." He asked Jason Green in the locker room afterwards, like, "How many? You've been here 4 years. Have I had to ride guys like I've had to ride guys thus far to get them to understand what it's going to take to be successful playing at this level?" And it goes back to that internal leadership and that internal fortitude that we're lacking right now, and going to have to try to figure something out, moving forward, because any successful team has that internal force that gets you through tough times. And I'm not talking about winning or losing. It's just it's a matter of possession to possession of fighting through things and making things a focus and understanding that every possession matters.
Yeah. Murph, I don't think there's a whole lot more to go into on this one, right? I know you got to get on the bus, but I wanted to ask you one thing, and you know me, I'm a big softie, and I'm going to try to get you to change your mindset for just 1 second here. John Bishop put out a tweet earlier. Ryan Kalkbrenner and Rachel welcomed their first child, and I know how much Ryan means to you. Can you just give us just maybe a take on, as a coach and somebody who's done this for as long as you've done it, what does it mean to you when you see your former players go on and have huge accomplishments in life, like the birth of your first child?
Yeah, it's amazing. Obviously, what that young man did for this program, and to see other guys grow and become a father, and just it's really very rewarding. I mean, that's one of the things that you forget about as a coach, is that you always have a direct influence on these young men and what they become. And using Ryan as a perfect example, when he has his first child born, and he's just going to be a great father, and I'm sure that little girl is just going to love him like we all do. And it's just I'm glad you brought that up, because this is what you go through when you lose a player of Ryan's caliber. This is life without Kalkbrenner, and it's going to take some time to figure it all out.
Hey, Murph, we appreciate the time. Thanks for the kind words. We'll get home safe, and we'll talk to you later in the season.
Say that again, please.
Oh, we appreciate your time. We just wanted to say safe travels, and we'll talk to you later in the season.
Sounds great. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Murph. Coach Steve Murfeld joins us here on the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pepper Jack's Grill and Pyramid Contractors. We got some comments in the YouTube chat. We'll take a quick break here. We'll be right back, and we'll get to those and more. It's the Roll Jays podcast.
Why you need to try Pepper Jack's Grill, the best Philly cheesesteak in America. At Pepper Jack's Grill, we craft your Philly just the way you like it. Fresh ingredients, sizzling on the grill, and endless customization options. Not just Phillies, we've got rice bowls, burritos, nachos, and even vegetarian choices. And don't forget those crispy fries with our famous spicy ranch. With 10 great locations in Omaha, there's a delicious meal waiting for everyone in the family. Pepper Jack's Grill, your Philly, your way.
At Pyramid Contractors, we do it all. From repairing or replacing your roof to updating siding, windows, or gutters. When you have a home improvement project, call Pyramid Contractors.
PyramidRoof.com, never settle for less.
Welcome back into the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pepper Jack's Grill and Pyramid Contractors on the Big East Energy Network. Thank you to Steve Murfeld and his forehead for joining us on the call. We'll have to get Coach Murph coached up on how to do a live podcast versus a radio call in, but thanks to Murph for joining us. We'll get to your comments. Please let us know your thoughts on Creighton's loss 90-63 tonight.
Dude, we're going to turn these comments off, man. I can't concentrate on this. I can't not blink, Jonathan.
Yeah, people think you're very attractive, so that's very nice.
It's gotta be buddies, man. This has to be buddies.
Joe, I appreciate. My head's not available for rubbing, but I appreciate the comments as well. Listen, I mean, we talked about it before the game. This is what happened.
Those off there. Thanks, pal.
You really wanted the comments. You asked if we could have people call in. This is what happens when you open the window. Listen,
who are these people, Jimmie? If that's Lucas, Lucas is watching. If that's Lucas on a burner, I'm gonna have issues.
Welcome to the internet. Murph wanted us Murph wanted us to know that he only heard about 25% of what he was asking. He was hoping that it sounded okay. But We talked about it before, and the line opened at 9.5, jumped up to 12.5, jumped back down to 11. Obviously, Gonzaga covers with ease tonight. Somebody had asked in the YouTube chat about talking about overs, unders. Jim Bob 71 asks if you could get 5 of your friends to put together to prevent a 20-0 run against college kids. I'm going to sound like an apologist here, and I don't mean to, but it's not like this doesn't happen all the 20 nothing is pretty bad, but it's a situation where you're stepping in quicksand. Things are just going wrong. The Jays had 4 consecutive turnovers on 4 consecutive possessions. So it's not even necessarily like the defense was bad. Not that the defense was great tonight. Obviously, Murph alluded to that, but it wasn't as simple as, hey, they're just not playing well either.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of it has to do with this. We're looking at a team on the rankings was like 23-19. Gonzaga is not number 19 in the country.
No.
That is a Final Four good team, in my opinion. Sorry, these comments are really incredible right now.
This is the internet.
So I mean, honestly, like that's a Final Four good team in my opinion. Now, for us, like we talked about this, Jimmie. I was a little bit confused at our preseason ranking because we hadn't played together. Like you got a lot of new pieces coming in, and I'm just gonna not even look at that part of the screen. But you got a lot of new pieces coming in.
You get it together. You're a professional now.
Have to figure this out.
Yeah.
And then when you have an Owen Freeman get hurt in the preseason, it derails some things. So. Look, I do think this is one of those things where it's going to take a little bit of time. It just is. Now, do I think by any stretch this is excusable? No. And if you listen to what Murph said, which is very interesting, and for fans listening, like that should be a telltale sign of where this team is Mac is having to not coach, but really like and get players to play hard and talk about playing hard and playing together, playing the right way. That's not something he's had to do over these last few years when you've had Ryan Kalkbrenner, you've had Stephen Ashworth and the Baylor Shiremans of the world. You haven't had to do it.
Yeah.
And so
and like when you talk about replacing a Ryan Kalkbrenner who is dominating the NBA right now, obviously from a standpoint of replacing that level of productivity on both sides of the ball, rebounding, etc., all goes into effect there, but like also the understanding of the system and having a guy like a Stephen Ashworth that was in the system for 2 years, or even having a Sammy Osmani that was there that could walk players through what you're supposed to do in certain situations. Obviously, from an on the court standpoint, not that big of a loss, but a guy in the locker room that can direct traffic and just get people in the right positions and help explain the pace and the spacing on the floor that you need to use to play in the system and offensively and defensively. That's where these losses are coming in. That's why when I say, hey, yes, it's almost a 30-point loss and things didn't look good tonight. You are paying these guys a ton of money. When they get the experience and the reps and you start feeling pretty good about yourself mid-January, mid-February, or if you're feeling as good as Casey Matthews is right now because of the comments in the YouTube chat right now, you're gonna find yourself playing a lot more free and more mistake-free basketball. I mean, there were some very inexcusable turnovers tonight. The Jay, like as I mentioned, the Jays turned the ball over on 4 consecutive possessions. They also finished the night with 18 turnovers. Yeah, you're not beating. There was a comment earlier about five of your friends winning a pickup game and not allowing. You're not beating 5 random guys off the street with 18 turnovers. It's not going to happen.
No, you're not. And it's look, you can't go on the road and turn the ball turn it over 18 times. You just can't do it. And look, I think we've kind of like almost beat this one, to death here, because when you start looking at the box score, there's just not a lot of bright spots. But I think I don't know. It's the thing that strikes me the most is just the level of effort on the offensive glass, or on the defensive glass for us. Like, I know we didn't give up. It wasn't like a crazy number of offensive rebounds, but it just looked like they wanted it more. And in a lot of ways they did. And that's really disappointing. The first half, I didn't feel that way. I felt like we were fighting, we were playing hard. The second half, it felt like we got punched a couple times, and then it was like, all right, we're going to lose this game. And that's disappointing. And you haven't seen that from Creighton teams as of late. And that's where that player-led leadership really has to come in.
J-Mac pointed out that Austin Swartz played really well. He said he's a dog and needs to see more playing time. That was something we kind of alluded to And before we hit go live, and it reminded me like of the conversation we were having with Alan Huss after the South Dakota game, just talking about how he's got to get better in practice and be more productive away from the in-game situation. He's got to be better in practice. Now, with that being said, probably be some conversations had about the way he's playing when the lights come on, because that's really when it matters. But you got to hold guys accountable in practice. I'm not trying to make any excuses. Sure. And I'm sure Austin has done just fine in practice. There's probably just a little bit of a miss somewhere. But the other thing is, like, you mentioned Josh earlier and the amount of money he's getting paid. Like, I know people don't want to hear it, especially when the guy you're giving $1 million goes 1 of 9 from the field. But there's going to be a little bit of dictation based on how much guys are getting paid between how much time they see on the court. That's just the way the world works now.
Well, for sure. I mean, it is the way it is, right? Like, guys are getting paid. I'm not privy to all the salaries and stuff, but I know they're high, and I know that when you're paying guys big money, and you're essentially saying, like, we're betting on you. You just can't miss on some of these guys. Now, it's way too early to say that we missed on anybody, right? Like, you've got to let some other games play out. But I don't think it's unfair to say that there has to be production, and it has to be production soon. Here's the problem for me, Jimmie, is you're about to play two opponents that we should, again, you got to play them, but you should be able to beat them both at home. But I don't know that you're really going to get an idea of what Josh and Owen have to offer this team through those 2 games. And I don't think we're going to find out until Vegas and you start playing some of these. So that's the interesting part for me. But I can tell you this much. This team that we're watching right now is not going to be able to compete with St. John's, is not going to be able to compete with UConn. I think you could almost even throw Villanova and Georgetown into that mix. And it's November 11th, right? Like, yeah. We're just talking about the season as a whole. But you see it. There's some work that has to be done. And here's the one thing I will say, trying to go back to my silver lining, is we have Greg McDermott. And you just can't ever bet against that dude. And he does it every single year. His teams always get better. His players always maximize their potential. And so I'm going to bet on Mac 100 out of 100 times, but it is what it is right now. And I do think it's fair to call out, some of the things that need to get fixed.
Yeah, and there's some pretty glaring things too, right? It's pretty obvious that you've got to score baskets to win basketball games, and I think that's probably where a lot of people are concerned. It's like, okay, this is a Greg McDermott system. We've seen how good Mac is at creating offense and helping guys find their own shots. And Nick Graves has played phenomenal through 3 games, including the scrimmages. And tonight, I mean, he even struggled. 5 of 13. He was 0 of 6 from 3. And that's why I go back to, this was not just a Josh Dix, Owen Freeman, situation. This was an overall team loss because everybody struggled. And thank you to the donation from Jonathan Ryan. He gave us 99 cents. Appreciate that. You can donate to the cause if you'd like. I don't think that makes Casey take his T-shirt off, but that's neither here nor there.
No, it takes a lot more than 99 cents.
But I hate to say this because I know it's what we're talking about tonight. It's what everybody wants to discuss. In the grand scheme of things, this game meant nothing tonight. Like, obviously, it may come into effect.
Well, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one, Jimmie. This one means something. Here, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
But
it's your show. I mean,
no. This is Jimmie Allen's show. But when you start talking about NCAA tournament seedings,
yeah, that's what I was about to say before you politely interrupt me. But go ahead.
I was polite, like you said. But I do think it matters. I also think it matters from the standpoint of now you're going back to Omaha with very little confidence. You're going back to Omaha with a lot more questions than you have answers. And that is a problem. And look, again, you've got Mac. We're going to be fine. He'll figure it out. And not just Mac, but Huss and, Murph, Trey, all the guys. Yeah. But I do think it's fair to just look at this and say, we really don't know what this team is capable of. And I also think it's fair to say maybe what we thought we were, it's going to take a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
And
listen, the discussion for the season was Final Four for a lot of people. Like with the talent that you brought in, with what people thought Josh Dixon, Owen Freeman could be, Blake Harper being a former MEAC player of the year, Austin Swartz being what we think he is, and then Nick Graves probably being a little further along than people expected him. If you didn't told people that Nick Graves is going to come in and be further along than you expect him to be, Blake Harper is going to look like he can fit and make the jump talent wise, you would have thought this team would have been 2-0 and probably went out to Spokane and got a win. Now, with that being said, there's still a lot to be figured out. And I do believe that Josh Dixon, Owen Freeman will get there. I don't think it can be overstated how big of a loss it was to not have Owen Freeman for those 6 weeks. Like I think that is going to be, when we look back in January and talk about what the shortcomings of this team was and maybe why the number next to their name in March is what it is, it's going to be highlighted because it took Owen Freeman a little bit longer to get into the groove of things than it probably should have. And a lot of it's going to be because of his knee.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance for that. I don't know. I think all this that we're feeling right now is normal, but I also think you can go to Vegas and win the Players Era, and we're like, yeah, whatever. Gonzaga,
everything's fine. Yeah,
yeah. So it's such a long season. It just stinks to be 2 games in and feeling this way. And if we're feeling this way, I can promise you, the locker room, the coaching staff, they're all feeling really down right now and really unsure of what this team is. And again, that's part of the deal. That's part of college basketball now. When you bring in this many new faces, it takes a lot of work and effort to figure some things out. What you hope, though, is that when you bring in 2 guys from the Big Ten who have been really big producers in the Big Ten, that you at least know what you have there. And come on, Jimmie. But
Jonathan want to know if you take a bet on Creighton winning the Big East. Yes or no?
No, I'm not taking that. I'm not taking that bet at all. This is getting out of hand,
Jonathan. I'm not putting that comment on the stream.
But no, I don't even.
One of our loyal listeners is offering to buy you a steak dinner. I would appreciate you just acknowledging his question. Like, in all honesty, I say that jokingly to seriously ask, like, or not ask, but maybe just make the statement, like, nobody wants to hear this. Nobody wants to talk about moral victories. Nobody wants to talk about not having problems. Everybody wants to discuss, because there's clearly issues with this team right now. But if once the calendar flips to Big East season and you take care of business there, everything will sort itself out.
Sure.
We get like a lot of people are football fans, and people get stuck in this football fan mentality that, this is a major loss and this is going to affect us long term. And that's just not the way basketball works. And like, if this team is able to go on a run, and I think we all believe that this team has enough talent to do so and win the Big East, the conversation we're having now is a moot point. Now, there's a lot of things that got to happen.
Well,
and you got to get a lot of
things.
Yeah, you got to get things right. But like you said, this is a long season, and I think back to the season, the mono season with Kalkbrenner, wherever we hit that 7-game skid, and everybody was ducking for cover because the sky was falling. Like, there's a lot of talent
Jimmie,
on this team, and no, you don't have a legit 7'1" rim protector that was a 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year on it, and I get that, but it feels like this team has enough talent around it and in it to figure some things out and be different, but still successful.
I know what you're saying. I think the difference is you don't truly know what you have right now. Whereas with that team, we knew. Like, it wasn't, I can assure you, it wasn't fun. I mean, I don't know if Lucas is still watching. He texted him, said he's watching. Lucas and I we had many nights together watching film, and during that run, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
But you knew what you had, and you knew that eventually we were going to right the ship. That's what this team, you just don't really know, because, again, Mac played 11 guys tonight, or maybe more than that, actually, had to be more than that. But before it got out of hand to where it was over, we had, I think, maybe 10 or 11 guys that had played. That's not because Mac wants to play 10 or 11 guys.
Well, no, he called a couple timeouts to get Shane Thomas and Liam McChesney in there as well.
But before that.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, he played everybody, for the most part. So, like,
were you surprised with how late Karam got in the game?
No, because the reason is he hasn't played a minute of true college basketball.
Fair.
You don't want to throw him in that environment. I think Mac played him when he had to. Plus, that's where, like, I think Jason Green is such a Swiss Army knife and I actually thought Jason was okay. Look, Ike was just on one tonight.
And that's the other thing about this. I
sometimes-
mean, you have a guy that hasn't hit a 3-point shot all season come out and go 4 of 4 to start the game. Like that's
right.
that's also going to lose you some games as well.
There's no question. I think a lot of this, and you don't want to get into the moral victories, but I can't give him 27 points. But I will say most of this to me is a credit to Gonzaga, more so than just a complete knock on Creighton. I think
Fair.
Gonzaga is just really, really good. We got hit, and we're not a cohesive unit yet that can really respond well to being hit multiple times. Like I thought we took some punches, and in that first half we fought back. But then you come out in that second half, and they got on the run that they did. And we just don't have the guys right now and the leaders right now to get through those moments. And, I thought a really important moment was actually when Swartz hit the 3 in the corner, and in the very next possession, Ike hit his 4th 3 of the game. Like, again, I'm not saying we would have won, but that was an interesting point of the game for me because I felt like we could have built some momentum there. Ike stole it all right back, and then it was kind of off to the races from there. But look, I mean, I think this is a team that – you got to respond. You got to come out and take care of business. 2 games at home, and then you go off to Vegas and see what you got there. But this certainly won't be a night that you want to turn the page on this one. And we do have quite a few people watching and listening. We appreciate that. Please take some time. If you don't know about our network, the Big East Energy Network on YouTube, please go on, subscribe, and watch our shows because we do put a lot of time, effort into this and try to give you guys some really good Creighton coverage and Big East coverage.
Yeah, a way to keep up on things going on around the rest of the conference as we're fully kicking off basketball season. Casey, obviously, we're already hitting into the wee hours of Wednesday morning, so we'll kind of wrap this up here. I just want to ask, obviously, you've been on this staff and been a part of this team on trips like this where you go on the road and it's a rough night. What is the conversation like, or is there even a conversation being had when you guys get on the plane or on the bus about how you fix things? Like, how quickly does that conversation start?
The conversation, here's how this will go. Okay. So, all right, Champy, cool. So the way this will go is Mac will sit and watch the game. He'll have his possession sheet and he'll be labeling different things and different notes on certain plays that he sees. The assistants will sit together and watch on their own separate computers. And it'll be a lot of, God, did you see this? Hold the computer up for a coach to watch a play that they're all going to watch anyways. But there's going to be a lot of that tonight. It's going to be a quiet plane ride home. And look, that's one thing I got to tell you this about Coach Huss. He's incredible at dissecting film, coming up with, fixes for different things that he sees that need to be fixed. And Mac is as well. But I had the pleasure of sitting next to Huss quite a few plane rides home watching film, and he is so detailed. And I do really believe like our offense didn't look great tonight. I expect some serious growth as we move forward because I do believe in Huss and I believe him as our kind of offensive guru. Him and Mac together will get this thing figured out hopefully fairly quickly. But there won't be a lot of talking tonight, Jimmy.
Well, thank you to Coach Steve Murfeld, who's a little upset with me about my forehead comment. We'll get that figured out, and we appreciate all of you and most of your comments for chiming in tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Big East Energy on YouTube. You can get updates on our show. We'll have a show every week on Mondays, as well as our pregame, halftime, and postgame shows you're watching along here after every Creighton men's home and away games. All season long right here on the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pepper Jack's Grill and Pyramid Contractors. Good morning. We'll see you on Friday.